Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you got a dog? Bring him out. Come, bring your dog. Got a busy day today, so we're gonna go through this rather quickly to give John as much time as he needs. So who is doing our prayer today?
Mr. Turner.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of this new day and for the opportunity to gather in fellowship as Rotarians. We ask for your presence among us, guide our hearts and minds as we seek to serve others with humility, wisdom, and love. Help us to reflect the teachings of Christ in all that we do and live out the values of integrity, compassion, and service. Bless this meeting, our work, and those we aim to help. May all we do be for your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, let's do our pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Number one.
Is it free?
Number two.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Number three.
Will it feel good and hold better friendships?
Number four.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Play ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on.
Now you have to stand up.
I'm gonna say, no.
Yeah, you have to stand up and say who you are.
Introduce yourself.
And introduce yourself.
Sean will call off.
Visitors, we have some visitors here that are here to see the public servant, Maureen and Bill Walczyk. Where are they? Welcome. Bill, have you been here before? I thought you've been here before. Yes,
Yeah, we had a nice conversation last visit.
that's right. New perceptions. You're a good man. Thank you. All right. Peggy Montgomery, where's Peggy?
Right here.
Welcome, Peggy. Can you stand and tell hi, Peggy?
Hi. I'm Peggy Montgomery. This is my second time here in like 20 years. And I actually own a winery in Verona. It's called Verona Vineyards. And I have also been with Citibank for 35 years.
Welcome. Welcome. All right. Well, think we've been to the Verona Vineyards, haven't we, Greg Palmer?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, I remember it well.
Yeah,
Maybe not so much.
I don't know if I remember all of it.
Yeah. You got good grapes. Adam Howard, oh Lord, we've got Adam Howard here. Shit, what you got on Adam Howard? Adam, you still employed? Tell us what you're doing these days.
I work in Kenton County. I work in Kenton County. I've worked with the cities and I handle taxes and software. So it's exciting stuff.
Great. Well, now we miss you. You were a good Rotarian.
Thank you.
Past tense. Jacob Brooks, another surprise.
Wow.
The blast from the past. Welcome, Jacob. Good to see you. What are you doing these days, Jacob?
Well, working with Adam over at over in the Treasury Department in Kenton County.
Oh,
Great. Okay. I'll behave myself. Hey, pay him every now and then.
Property tax bills coming out.
There you go. Thanks. Sophia Smith. Where's Sophia?
To your left.
Welcome, Sophia. Sorry about that. What do you do, Sophia?
I'm an intern with Central County Equipment Center at the Boone County.
Oh, welcome. Yeah. Thank you. You're with good people there, as you already know. Yeah, congratulations. And then I see my friend back there who did sign in. Judge Rouse is here. Judge Rouse, good to see you. If anybody had to work with the courthouse all through the years, not that I ever did too much. She saved a lot of souls of young men and women. Yeah. She actually worked for judges, but they didn't do things and she did things. Welcome, Sandy. That's about all I had. I went to bed last night with a full hair of blondish brown hair and I woke up like this. Congratulations, Bengals.
Yeah.
It's one of those terrible games where you can't even finish your wings in front of you because you don't know what's gonna happen next.
No doubt about that.
But we are blessed with the beautiful weather, puts everybody in a good mood and it stimulates the economy when the Bengals are winning. So here we go. Welcome.
Thank you,
Good
Sean.
job.
And a big thank you to Jim and Barb for filling out the rest of our board and Casey and John for also joining the foundation board. We greatly appreciate that. Important dates coming up. Our golf outing is the 3rd of October. Then the next day we have a river sweep in Ian, are you there? You are. You're kind of right.
That's gonna be down on Petersburg Dock. There is a sign up thing I'll send out via email later today.
Okay, thank you. And then we have training, Matt and I are going, so if anyone else is interested in going to the training down in Lexington, I highly recommend it, and we can carpool, so feel free to join us. It's well worth your effort to attend that training session. You're gonna reach out to me? There you go. Drive. That's a new one. All right. More details to come.
We lost Gary Wilmhoff.
I know. And Sunrise, I hope we're doing quite well. We got our grant from the district. Thank you, Mr. Palmer. So we're doing quite well. And as you see, we're raffling off bourbon. There's 2 other bottles that are not represented over there for only $20. You get an opportunity to win all that bourbon, and 100% of the funds from that raffle go to the Sunrise of Hope. And for the people that don't know what that is our, we've started this organization to help homeless children in Boone County, and we'll be working with the city and the Boone County schools to identify the needs of the students that need our help. So see Julie, if you want to put the yard sign in your yard that tells about the golf outing and the bourbon. And today's the day.
Today's the day. Can I talk?
You can indeed.
Today's the day. BB Bop fundraiser. I probably texted 30 people that needed last night. And they were all responding, we'll be there, we'll be there. So please text the image. You can take a picture of it, send it to your friends. And don't forget, you can also stop at Kroger, pick up a gift card, you earn fuel points, and if you have Rotary tied to your community rewards, we earn money from that.
Thank you, Julie. And once again, as we were talking about moments ago, Jim has bourbon over there. So any guests that feel that they would like to purchase a raffle ticket or more, please see Jim during or after our meeting, and we'll gladly sell you a ticket or 2. Mr. Wolf will be here next week to talk about the Rotary gear that it's going to have shirts and hats and such. So we'll have more about that next week. Make sure you post and touch everything
Yes.
that's on Facebook. And
We're doing better. The numbers are going up.
I'm constantly
Yes.
hitting Steve or you or whoever.
Yeah.
And don't forget, I can no longer say that I have not done this. I have officially been registering my hours. So please follow suit. It wasn't that difficult. If I can do it, you all can do it. Plus, over on the table, if you don't feel that you can go on there or you just want to write down your hours, we have someone is it Susan? Are you doing that. So just go over there and we've got the paper there to sign up. And
We can send that out. It's on the district's Facebook
we're
page.
going to play both those. So we're going to give John some more time. So
Yeah.
that's not public.
I think Great.
So next week we'll be playing those for you.
Yeah.
Citizen of the Year is Joe. He'll be, that is the 6th. We're doing that, I think. Okay, Mr. Palmer, I know you have an announcement.
I just got back from a week in Columbus at something we call the Zone Institute. It's basically a district conference for 2 zones. Just to remind you, you got clubs, Rotarians in clubs, they're gathered together in districts that are geographically built to have about the same number of Rotarians in each one. And then the zones grab up the geographic districts into bigger groups. We were with 62 districts in Columbus. They had about 500 people. Great time. And the stories you hear of what we're doing in Rotary, in the heart of America, we call that the heart of America, and the clubs, it's amazing. We are having a huge impact just because we're Rotarians and we care about making life better for other people. So keep it up. Don't quit. We're making progress.
Anyone else have an announcement? Right. All right, Mary, birthday.
Today?
Happy birthday. Birthday.
I've been trying to.
And Gary is tomorrow. Happy birthday. Congratulations, Paul. 19 years. Well done. Oh. And Steve, 1 year.
You made it a year.
Right behind the bar. $50. Julie.
Okay, so I actually paid my happy dollar last week, but I didn't say it. So I found out that Parent Camp has been named one of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce top 100 small businesses in the category of disruptors.
Oh, wow. Marks.
I've got a high school reunion coming up, and I was doing some digging on books about a reunion. And I found this one called Adventures in Service. And I started going through it, and I'm a charter member of not this club, but of a club in Naples, Florida. And we chartered on May 20th of '83, so that sort of tells you my age a little bit, okay? But the book that they gave us at that time said this book is presented to Rotarian Marcus Elman, who starts his Adventures in Service as a charter member of the Rotary Club. It's a great, great book on Rotary.
Oh, cool.
All of us who've been in Rotary, sometimes we tend to forget a little bit about what we're all about, even though we act like we do. This is a good book to bring us back up to speed, because a lot of the stuff that Rotary is founded on and has done hasn't changed. Our basic foundation is the same. We're wonderful Rotarians and we do a lot of work in this type of thing. So I'm gonna check to see if this is available still. And if I do, this would be a good handout for new members coming out.
Yeah.
And from some of us old members who need to have a refresher and stuff. Thank you very much.
Nice.
I've got 3. The first one, I'm bragging my daughter. First is she made the St. Henry's JV team as an 8th grader at St. Tim's. So very proud of her. I think they
Nice.
finished a tournament last weekend at Worth, which is great. Second one is in last week's Link magazine or newspaper. It was shared that the St. Timothy drama team or department is doing the opening for
Yeah.
the Rockettes at Radio City Music Hall on December 4th. So we can head out there.
Nice. Yeah.
So I need to keep my dollars to pay for that trip. Last one is leadership. I put this guy on your table and I did confirm before we booked this that Rotary does not have a meeting that day. So on that Monday, October 13th, you can get some leadership training and a golf foursome. And the charity is The Beat Goes On, which we are working on getting as a presenter here. So
Cool.
Full circle moment. That's it.
I guess I need to throw in $1 because nephew is the one taking group to St. Tim, from St. Tim's. to-
Oh.
Mr. Mason.
Yeah, it is. He's the music director up there. So that's a happy dollar. All right. Think so. Really?
Yeah.
As everyone knows, Mr. Schickel.
I don't think I need to do any type of introduction. So in lieu of that, I'm gonna say, here's Johnny.
Thank you for that great introduction. And I was gonna talk about this a little bit wrong in my remarks, but I think I'm gonna just go ahead and do it now, and that's the role of civic organizations in our community, because when I got off the boat in Boone County in 1975, the first thing I did was join some civic organizations. And they have really formed who I am today. And I look out over Rotary, and I don't know how many years I've been a member of this club, but it's been quite a few. But really, back in the day, in 1975, we had, I think about the Boone County JCs, because I see
Right.
Judge Moore and Commissioner Rafferty, and I know there's others that were JCs. Bruce Ferguson, who's now gone, Senator John Weaver, who's now gone. Almost everyone back in those days who was in public service come from the JCs. I think of groups like the Boone County Business Association. That was a very, very active organization started by State Representative Bill McGee that went to Frankfurt and did those types of things. And then I think of this organization, the Rotary. And when I think of Boone County, it's some people how much our community has changed over the years. The growth has just been unbelievable. Back years ago, back when I got here, we were like 30,000 people. Now we're like, 160,000, Judge?
About 148.
About 148. So that's the kind of growth we're talking about, and how much our community has changed over the years. I'm gonna start my remarks by, when I first came to Kentucky, I came to work at Northern Kentucky University on their campus police department. And I'm gonna start my remarks talking about the Beverly Hills Supper Club fire. I'm gonna end my remarks talking about COVID-19, 2 tragedies, and then a lot of good stuff in between. But I'll never forget the evening. It was May 28th, in 1977. I reported to work. I was a campus policeman at Northern Kentucky University, and I reported to work there for my shift. And I was told immediately that the Beverly Hills Supper Club was on fire, and to respond to the Beverly Hills Supper Club immediately. I was the 3rd police car on the scene. Guy named Don Baker, Southgate police officer, he was there first. There was a Fort Thomas police officer there, and then I was there. We were there before the fire department. And that was the first time I ever saw death on a massive scale. That was a historic fire. There was over 100 people were killed. When we got there, it was like a hellhole. People were still running out, and it was always amazing to me. It was very spooky because they were in their clothes. They were all dressed up. John Davidson, some of you old guys like me will remember John Davidson, but he was an entertainer. That was a big name. People came from all over the country to see the show, and they were there. They were all dressed up. Sometimes they would run out of the building under their own power, then run down the hill and die. After they had got out under their own power. That night, I met Governor Julian Carroll, and he's come and spoke to you at this club a couple of times, and I know a lot of you met him before. But he showed up about 3 in the morning Governor Carroll did. I had just moved from Kentucky to Ohio, and I was living in a rooming house in Newport. And so when I moved to, so when I saw Governor Carroll, little did I know that 20, 30 years later, I'd be serving with him in the Kentucky State Senate. But that was the first time that I had ever met Governor Carroll. The next night, I came to work, and they told me to go to the Fort Thomas, to the armory, where they had set up a morgue. And they had all the bodies laid out on the floor of the Fort Thomas Armory. And they had called in refrigerator trucks from Kroger's. And our job was, we sat out there at those refrigerator trucks, and when funeral homes would come in to pick up the bodies, we would have to go in the truck with our flashlights, look at the toe tag, and make them check it against the paperwork to make sure that the funeral home had the proper body. So that was kind of my baptism to Kentucky, because it happened very shortly after I arrived here. Lucky, things would get very much better after that. I'll never forget, one of the things that changed my life, there's several families or people sitting in this room that changed my life, but one of them, the first one, is Sean Carroll's family, because Sean Carroll's brother, Patrick, some of you may know him, he was the nice one. He worked with me, and he said, John, he says, I know you want to get on police department. He says, why don't you come out to Florence and meet my family? And my mom knows W.A. Brown, who's on city council. Maybe we can get you hired on the Florence Police. Believe it or not, I had applied at the Cincinnati Police Department. And even back then, you know, we talk about DEI, but it was going on even back then, because they had a list for white people and they had a list for black people, and they had the test scores. Now, my test score wasn't high enough for the list for white people, so I couldn't get on the police department. So I came out to Florence and had dinner at Sean Carroll's house, and his mom called W.A. Brown. Next thing you know, I can still remember laying in bed in the rooming house down there in Newport, and Chief Cowan, the Florence Police called, said, you're hired, come on out and have an interview. And so that started a great time when I worked for the city of Florence, which started in 1975, and I was there for 10 years. The life of a patrolman back in, I see the mayor here, and her dad was on city council then, Ferd Metzger. It was just a great time, because Florence was a booming, you know, it was just exploding. And it was an exciting place for a young man to live. If you can imagine, like Kentucky 18 was just a 2-lane road. But it was exploding, the population, it was like former Congressman, former Judge Executive Ken Lucas used to say, you know, we public service sometimes like to take credit for things that happen. But really, the reason it was exploding was because of our location. We had all this great level farmland. We had low taxes. We had I-75, which had been fairly recently been built. We had 275, which had been very recently built coming around the other way. We had the airport, and we had the river, and we were 20 minutes from Fountain Square. So and we had a good public school system. So it was a great place for someone to come and raise a family or start a business. So lots of young families, lots of business, and I might add lots of mischief. You know, when I was working patrol in Florence, there was 5 bars that had live music 6 nights a week until 2 a.m. And you know, I worked all second shift, and it was not unusual to get fight calls and all kinds of crazy stuff. And back in those days, if we would get a fight call, like there was a bar called the Dark Forge, which was down here on Turfway Road, they would take a German Shepherd, put that German Shepherd on lead, and German Shepherd would go in first. It'd be, you know, barking. And boy, those drunks would be running out the exit. You know, anything to get away. And I wasn't the toughest guy in the world, but I like to hang around guys that were tough. So it was like, I would also go to those bars. I have to admit, a lot of times after I got off work, so people kind of got to know me. So I always kind of had good backup, even if it wasn't from the police, it was from a drunks on a bar stool. Here's place. I just share the story, but I'm jumping way ahead. I was walking across a suspension bridge to a Reds game with my girlfriend, and some hooligans started picking on me and my girlfriend. I mean, it was getting ugly. And this guy jumps out of a pickup truck, jumps through the thing, and he's like, fight, help me. Well, I wasn't fighting him off. He was fighting them off. Found out later he was a prisoner. I'd headed to jail. I mean, it was just a strange dynamic. We had bank robbers. I see Dennis McAvoy, and I was talking to Sandy, and I said, boy, I hope Dennis McAvoy's here, because there's certain people that to me are Boone County. I mean, they represent what Boone County was before I got here. One of them's Gary Greiser, and the other one's Dennis McAvoy. Sandy Rouse's family fits that category. Steve Dallas, you and your family fit that category. Ed Monahan, I think you were Fort Mitchell, so you don't count. But I know I'm missing some others, but they represented Boone County when I got here. And in those years when I was on Florence Police, you had one bank, Florence Deposit Bank, which Dennis McAvoy's family ran. And then you had this little startup bank that was out of a trailer, which Sandy Rouse worked out, which was Boone State Bank. Those were the only two banks in town. How many banks are there in town now? 80 dozen. So it was kind of a cool little place. That was also the time, on a more serious note, when we developed a lot of these regional authorities. The library, the Northern Kentucky Area Planning, which we're standing in today. The Northern Kentucky Visitors and Convention Bureau, the Tri-County Economic Development Authority, just to name a few. And there's others. Those were all things that were developed back when Boone and Kenton, but especially Boone, we were still very rural as regional authorities. But so that was a time when a lot of that was going on. We also, and this was before my time, but we went from a magistrate form of government to a county commissioner form of government, which was a very, very different form of government. So those 10 years on the Florence Police, those really were good years. Now, one thing, I did those years, I decided at one point I was going to run for sheriff. Now, you got to remember that this was a totally Democratic area. There was no Republicans. They were hunting Republicans with dogs here. I mean, there wasn't one Republican in office. And I was a Democrat. And I decided I was going to run against the incumbent sheriff for sheriff. And of course, I was just a kid. I was living over in Normandy Green Apartments, didn't know what the hell I was doing. The old thing is I didn't know what I didn't know. Okay. And I sure didn't know much. But I decided to do that, and people that knew from the area tried to talk me out of it, but I wouldn't listen. I was young and I was going to do what I was going to do, and I did it. And I got beat. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I learned lessons from that, political lessons that you don't learn by winning. I'm sure the same thing is true in sports. I don't know a whole lot about sports, but people that do tell me you learn lessons from losing. You don't learn from winning. I'm always kind of feel sorry for people that never get that opportunity in politics, not because I want them to lose. It hurts to lose. It hurts bad. But when you lose your first race, I think you look at other races after that a little different. I know I did. And I learned how to take it. And I also learned to be nicer to people, because at that time, some people weren't very nice to me. But I learned that, what goes around comes around. And so I decided to do that. So I wanted to throw that in there because that was a very, very pivotal moment for me as far as my education politically.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Who'd you run against?
Elmer Wright, Steve Dallas. You knew it. You knew the answer. You just wanted to hear it.
When somebody didn't talk to you, did they?
Yeah. No. Well, it's funny because I see Dennis McAvoy over there. And one of the things they told me is, now, John, if you're going to run for office, you need to go to talk to Bill McAvoy. And I said, well, who's Bill McAvoy? And they said, well, he runs everything. You gotta go talk to him. So I went over on the Cresty Drive and I rang the doorbell, and this man, very distinguished looking man in a robe, comes to the door. And it says, who are you, little boy? And I said, well, I'm John Schickel and I'm running for sheriff. He kind of looked at me like, oh, okay, I heard of you. So I told him, you know, what I was doing, I would sure appreciate his support. And he very humbly said, well, you know, I don't get involved much anymore, but best of luck to you or something like that. But and that was Dennis's dad, who at the time, I think that was kind of at the end, towards the end of that. At the time, Dennis did was what, county attorney? County attorney, very distinguished attorney in Boone County. And I met him one other time, Dennis, and that's when he gave a talk to the Knights of Columbus. Yeah, that was the other time I met him. But 2 years later, I ran for Boone County Jail. And I won that race. And Sandy Rouse, who's back there, she's helped me with every race I've ever been involved in, but she was involved in that race big time. I'll never forget it because we had a victory party at the old Ramada Inn. And my mom, who's gone to arrest, I had a wonderful mother, and her were counting the ballots. And when it became clear that I won, they threw those up in the air. And I remember that my mom and Sandy Rouse just screamed. And I will never forget that. And I always think of that. I'm always thankful for people like Cindy. Now, to me, Sandy's a symbol. And I see our present county attorney sitting over there, and she knows, and anybody that's run for office knows, when you run for office, you don't do it by yourself. You have to have people helping you, dedicated people. And the difference between winning a race and not being successful is usually not the candidate, but the candidate's organization. And I am so thankful because I've had a lot of people carry my water over the years. And I am so thankful that many of them are sitting in this room. The years at the Boone County Jail were also wonderful years. People go, why would the hell would anybody want to be jailed? I got that a lot. And well, I guess the answer when I ran was I wanted to be the boss. But once I got in the job, there's a lot going on in the jail, and there's a lot of opportunities in the jail. Maureen's here, my friend, and we were talking the other day about what wonderful parents we had. And one of the things I saw in the jail right away was, boy, there's a lot of people aren't even close to being as fortunate as I was. And what I tried to do is, couldn't do it a whole lot, but what I tried to do, actually, I was amazed at how successful we were in doing it, is to give them just a little bit of what I had growing up. And my dad was the strictest there. I mean, strict. He used the belt on us boys. And I was one of 11 children. I forget that not everyone in the room. I'm from Ohio, one of 11 children. But I had wonderful parents. And I saw that so many of the prisoners and the people I was dealing with did not have that. And so I was there 14 years. And by the time I left, I can say to this day, it's the most satisfying job I've ever had in my life. I enjoy being in the Senate. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed being on the Florence Police. As far as making direct impact on people's lives, that was where I felt the most fulfilled. Some of the unique things we did. I learned the power of culture in that job. We were in the old jail at the time. Well, not the old jail to the old timers, but the new old jail. And it was on top of it. It was pretty primitive. And I was president of the Kentucky jail. I was in and out of a lot of prisons and jails. And a lot of times you go into jail, there's people yelling and screaming and hollering, and it's an animal house. We had that jail, so you could walk a young lady down a cell block and not a peep would be hurt. And how did we do it? And I see some people shaking their heads because they toured it when we were there. We did it by the culture we installed. And the culture is taking care of the little things. No graffiti on the walls, no cursing. Everything's clean. All beds are made. All the things you got taught at home. I mean, really, you teach that in a jail and it's hard to do at first, trust me. But you don't have fist fights and people screaming and yelling and writing graffiti up. We had our problems, don't get me wrong. We have big problems. But one of the things I'm most proud of in 14 years, I never lost one life. We had people try to hang themselves. We had people slit their wrists. We had all kinds of crazy stuff like that. But we never lost one life, and the county never paid out one dime in any kind of lawsuit the whole time I was there. And we ran the jail, something that we've never done before that or never been done after that, without one penny from the county for the whole 14 years we were there. One of the great things we did, and I got to give former Judge Ken Lucas a lot of credit, because he, it wasn't popular at the time. It really wasn't. But we built the Boone County Jail Work Camp, and it was we called it a work camp, and I had to fight to keep that name because they didn't think that sounded progressive enough. Work camp. They wanted to call it a halfway house, a detention center, and all this and all that. And I said, no. I said, I want to call it a work camp. We're going to call it a work camp. The reason I wanted to call it a work camp is one of the problems that many of these young men have is they've never been taught to work. They have literally never been taught to work. They never had to cut the grass at home. They never had to, do a summer job. They never had to do any of these kinds of things. So I wanted, and we did. We called it a work camp. We built a Morton building. Some of you farmers may know what a Morton building is, and we did it with all prisoner labor. At the time, a guy named Don Woods was the head of was head of maintenance. He coordinated. I had a wonderful chief deputy, Ed Prindle. Some of you may know Ed's family. He took a lot of the, did a lot of the daytime. So we created the Boone County Jail Work Camp. The other thing we did, and Gary Greiser was a part of this several times, is we brought in inspirational speakers. We had Gary several times. We had Leslie Isaiah Gaines. I don't know, he's passed now, but he was a black attorney over in Cincinnati, to come in and talk to the prisoners in the assembly room and talk to them about life and motivation and things. And the way I did this was we had a fund called the Canteen Fund. Gary always donated his time, but I had to pay some people. And we, at that time, believe it or not, how times thing, we sold cigarettes, sold candy, we sold all kinds of stuff on the jail canteen. And we made a lot of money doing that. And we were allowed to spend that money on, it was called Things for Prisoner Improvement. And I considered that prisoner improvement. So we had the bishop, believe it or not, we had the bishop of the Diocese of Covington come to the Boone County Jail and say mass. He didn't get paid either, but I mean, we just did, it was at Christmas time. So we had it was just a wonderful time. We took a group of them over to, what's the, down at Kincaid Lake, to that summer theater they had, to the Sound of Music. And because most of them, they had never been to a play before. So it was just, it was a great time. Had some tough times too. Like I said, we had some, the thing about a jail, and people don't realize this, you have the town drunk, and then you have the worst of the worst, because every prisoner on death row in Eddyville came through a county jail. So when you're managing the town drunk and the meanest murderer, that's a management challenge. And everything in between, that's a management challenge. So we had some tough times. I had 2 escapes. One of them was a very high security prisoner, went out on bed sheets, went out off the 4th floor. I'll never forget it, in the middle of the night. That was back in the days you didn't have cell phones. You kept the phone by your bed on the nightstand, ring, 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 the worst nightmare, somebody's escaped. So I go flying down there, and I look up and hear these bed sheets coming down. Oh, God. So I go up there and said, what do I do first? I said, pull them damn bed sheets off there before the press gets here. I did. I sure as hell didn't want that on television,
Yeah.
And a guy named Bob Hyde was the first police officer there. And I would have killed him had I had a gun, I would have killed him. And I'm talking, I really would drop the cap on him. I'd have had a chance to, because once a prisoner escapes from custody like that, you can justify using deadly force. And you can use deadly force even if they're running away. And by gosh, I would have. But that's how I learned about the Marshal Service, because he was a federal prisoner and the Marshal Service got called in, and that was how, and those of you who don't know what I'm talking about because I got that great introduction. The next phase of my talk is to be my time with the Marshal Service, but that's how I learned about the Marshal Service. But the
John, could I
Yes.
insert a perspective real
yeah,
quick? When I was up there speaking at the top floor of the
yeah,
current
thank you,
courthouse,
Gary. Yeah,
you told me one time, we've got a murder in here tonight, and it'll be in the audience where you're talking. And so I was in the room already waiting for people. They would bring them in a few at a time.
why don't you, so people can hear you do that? Okay.
Bring them in a few at a time. Well, I was in there, and apparently this is like the weight room sometimes, because there was like
Yeah.
barbells.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
These are lethal weapons that this murder is gonna have. So I didn't know I kept wondering, which one is the murderer? Do I need to keep my eye on him? Well, finally, we got everybody in the room. Nothing ever happened, but I do want to thank you for improving my prayer life.
I want to thank you for agreeing to come. You know, Derek says a few words, but one of the things that when I got to Boone County, one of the first people I met was Gary Greiser. And we talk about civic organizations. He came and we had a Boone County JC's prayer breakfast. And several times he came and sang along with Julian Carroll and others. And I said, I want to learn to speak like Gary Greiser someday. And I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm working on it because anybody that's either heard Gary sing or speak, he's really great at it, as well as being a great educator. Got me off my tree.
Sorry, U.S. Marshals, two escapees.
Yeah, today. So, yeah. So that's how I learned about the U.S. Marshals. It's funny because when the guy escaped, they said, we're going to send a specialist in from Washington. It's going to help you catch this guy. So I thought, good, I'll go out to the airport, pick him up. So I've watched all this stuff about the Marshals on TV. And so I go out there, this plane comes in, it gets on the phone and I said, well, what are we going to do? I'm thinking it'd be this big sophisticated plan, the U.S. Marshals. He goes, wait by the phone. What do you mean, wait by the phone? He goes, oh, they all got an ex-wife or ex-girlfriend that's mad at him. He'll get turned in. But the U.S. Marshals is an interesting story. The U.S. Marshals was created in 1789, 13 years. Oops, I forgot one thing. I got to go back to jail. A lot of people say Kentucky's the only place in the world, you guys who grew up in Boone County, this isn't a deal, but for newcomers, Kentucky's the only place in the world that elects jailers. They don't do that anywhere else. In most states, the sheriff runs the jail. In other areas, they have different ways of doing it. But I always like to tell the story of Kentucky jailers because it's really an interesting story. We're living under our third constitution. Okay, there was 3 constitutional conventions when the state was formed, another one, and then in 1890, I believe, is the one we're living under today. And there wasn't jailers up until 1890. In the 1890 convention, they created the office of jailer. Believe it or not, for kind of because it sounds so barbaric, an elected jailer, and it kind of sounds kind of backward. But the reason it was actually it was created was there was a debate at that constitutional convention because some people thought sheriffs were mistreating prisoners because they'd be mad at them. We all believe in innocence until proven guilty, rightfully, and there's a lot of people in jail that aren't convicted of anything, So they were thought that, so they decided to create 2 offices, one jailer and one sheriff. Only place in the world that's like that. And that wasn't that way until Kentucky, until our third constitutional convention. Just thought that's an interesting tidbit. Now, after I had some association with the U.S. Marshal Service, and the other reason I had a lot of association with them was we rented space to them at the jail. Judge Moore knows about this. And I really tried to keep them happy because they would come in and pay us big money to rent beds. And that's how I offset the cost of the county. So I bring them liquor, Christmas and all kinds of, trying to get those prisoners to offset my county prisoners. And that's what I learned about, and a lot of people don't realize this, but the U.S. Marshal, they watch television, but the best way to describe it, the U.S. Marshals was created in 1789, like I said. And it was created by George Washington when he created the federal court system. And it was the first federal bureaucracy, the very first one. At that time, they took the census, they did all kinds of things. That was the very first federal agency. There was one U.S. Marshal appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate for every judicial district. Kentucky has 2 judicial districts, an east and a west, so we get 2 U.S. Marshals. So I got appointed, and Senator Bunning was the main one that was responsible for this. And the other thing I forgot to tell you, in the mid-90s, I switched parties from Democrat to Republican, and that shook the earth here in Boone County. Because there was, Bill Clinton was president, Paul Patton was governor, Ken Lucas was judge executive, and the whole courthouse, sheriff, every commissioner was Democrat. There was nobody, and it was a majority of Democrats still registration back then, and I switched. They thought that I'd fallen and hit my head, and I made a lot of people real mad, and I made a lot of people real happy. But I did that because that's what I had lost really faith in the Democratic Party at that time, and I could see what was happening in Boone County. It was like a freight train coming down the tracks, and so I did that. So Jim Bunning was parading me around like a trophy, because anybody knew Jim Bunning. And he decided to appoint me to submit my name to the president to be appointed U.S. Marshal, George W. Bush. And so I was appointed, and he called me up and told me that. And of course, will you accept? I mean, yeah, right. Well, let me think about it. No. And it was a great honor. I got to go to the Oval Office. And meet President Bush, meet the Attorney General. That was right after 9/11, so that was a very heady time. People were really concerned about security. I was put on the Joint Terrorism Task Force, had a top security clearance, spent a lot of time in Washington. But our headquarters was in Lexington, so I resigned as jailer, obviously, and Ed Prindle, Judge Moore appointed Ed Prindle jailer to fill out my term. But the U.S. Marshal Service, my district was headquartered in Lexington, and I had Covington, Ashland, Pikeville, and London as sub-offices. And I moved to Lexington. I moved to an apartment in Lexington because that's where I had to be most of the time. But about a week after I was appointed, I was up here in Covington, and they called me up and said, "We have a shooting. One of your deputies just shot a guy that was a fugitive down here in Lexington, and he was unarmed, and he was charging he tried to run over the deputy, and you need to get down here right away." I mean, this is like the second day, So they run me down there, lights and siren, and we pull into this Knights Inn, and Lexington homicides there, and it was just like on TV, they got all the little markings where they found all the shell casings and everything. And I knew the 2 deputies, and they were there, and it was kind of actually a dicey case because the guy was unarmed, but and I'm just going to say it, the guy was black, and he was unarmed, he tried to ram his van into the deputies, and the deputies fired. Now, there's a big debate in law enforcement whether you should ever shoot at a moving vehicle or not. Some people say yes, some people say no. But that's what I was dealing with the first day. And we dealt with it, had a couple of meetings and stuff like that, and everything worked out. But the job of the U.S. Marshal Service, number one, you're like a federal sheriff. You serve all the papers of the federal courts. You arrest all fugitives. Now, let me say a little something about fugitive hunting, because people always find it interesting. When I was on the Florence police, I served some time as a detective. Very boring job. I mean, papers, burglaries, and cars being broken into, and it's just, I didn't like it. I like working the road and answering radio runs. Hunting fugitives is a different matter. It's actually pretty exciting because when someone breaks out of prison or jail, they don't have anything. So normally they break into the car, and so it's like, I hate to use the analogy, but if you ever hunted rabbits with dogs, it's kind of like that. It hops up, they go, and you're always a step behind them. And we had one case where they came up right here through Boone County. They had shot a guard at a federal prison down in Memphis and came right up here through Boone County. And they went into a cheap hotel here in Erlanger, and we went in after the guy and just missed him. Threw a flashbang in there. He had just taken off, and then he held up in another hotel up in Michigan. And finally they caught him up in Michigan. But my point is that it's very intense because the people are desperate, and they're also usually, if they're in federal prison, they're usually pretty dangerous. So it's fast and furious work, that part of it. But that is, people say to me that, honestly, I didn't care for the job that much because the job, I say it's kind of like being postmaster at the post office. If you've ever worked for the federal government, I was used to being changing things and doing things. And every way you turn, someone say, "What? You can't do this. You can't do that." And I see I'm running out of time, so I'll just give you when they, and I didn't even get a chance to talk about the Senate. They're going, but
We'll have a part two.
yeah, it was just it was just crazy. I was trying to get it so a live person would answer the phone at the federal courthouse. I didn't want to go on the voicemail. It was like a major battle, to get a live person to answer the phone at the federal courthouse. I finally, you wouldn't think you'd have to spill a bunch of blood to get that done. But I'm just using that example. And then I was curious when I left I called down just to see after I left. They put it back like about 3 weeks after I left. That is it. And I hope you let me come back and talk about the Senate.
John,
all right.
He's got a lot to talk about. He didn't think he's going to get it done in one, so you definitely come back.
Thank you.
And
I want to recognize Steve Rawlings, who took my place in the Senate, and because he's here.
Welcome, Steve. Wonderful stories. I can't wait for your return visit to hear more.
Yeah, we could use the same overhead too. With the same intro.
Take a finish line.
Mark, one thing I'd like to point out about John's thing, especially the U.S. Marshal. So it must have been somebody must have got sick because I was invited down to see John sworn in as the U.S. Marshal down in Covington, and Judge Bunning, not Senator Bunning, and the change. I thought we were out of time. The change of authority from Clinton's appointee to Bush's appointee was seamless. They shook hands and the new guy took office.
Nice.
And John actually pointed that out several times to people as the way that should work.
Yeah.
Right. Excellent. Well, see you all next week when we have Sunrise Children's Services with Kevin Richards. So enjoy your week. See you next week.
All right.